This lesson plan video is for pronunciation, and it's geared towards intonation towards more like middle school, maybe elementary school kids. And what we're doing is we are going to be reading from a story called Zen Shorts. And actually it's 3 different stories in the story, and we are going to be doing part of it. The lesson plan is actually much longer than this video will be, so we will be starting in the middle, where I will be reading a section of the story to the students with proper intonation, and then I will read it again with incorrect intonation and ask them if they heard any difference, see what they noticed, and basically just get their opinion and have a little discussion about it. And then I will read it again with the proper intonation. After we are finished with that, we are going to read it as a choral reading, all of the students and the teacher together. And what we will be doing is we will be using motions or pounding on the desk to get the rhythm and the beat right for the story. We are going to try to help the students understand that you have to stress certain words and not others, and how phrases need to be stressed. That's probably going to take us all the way through the 10-minute video. So after that, what we are going to be doing, and this will not be reflected on video, would be that the students would be working on a reader's theater. And after practicing several times on the intonation with the teacher, they would then be divided into parts and be given a small reader's theater based off of the book that they can use to basically just read the story with the correct intonation. The teacher, me, I would give them the instruction beforehand as to what I would be looking for. I would also give them plenty of time to practice and go over it in class with them myself several times before the groups were split up to perform the reader's theater for each other. There would be also the possibility of having them have handouts from the of the reader's theater, where we could actually mark the intonation on that so that they could have help with that too. So that's what this is, and we are going to start with the story. As you know, we're talking about the way English sounds when we say it, right? It's called intonation. So it's how we make it sound like music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a story to you, and I'm going to read it the proper way and have you listen to the way it's supposed to sound. And then I'm going to read it to you again, and I'm going to read it with the wrong intonation or incorrectly, and I'm going to ask you some questions afterwards. So here's the story. "Michael, there's a bear outside," said Carl. "Oh, what?" called Michael. "A bear. He's really big, and he's in the backyard." "What's he doing?" Michael asked. "He's sitting. He has an umbrella." "An umbrella?" By the time the boys got outside, their sister Addie was already talking with him. "I'm sorry for arriving unannounced," said the bear. "The wind carried my umbrella all the way from my backyard to your backyard. I thought I would retrieve it before it became a nuisance." He spoke with a slight panda accent. Michael introduced himself. Then Addie introduced Carl, because Carl was shy around bears he did not know. And this is how Addie, Michael, and Carl met at Stillwater. The next day, Addie went to have tea with Stillwater. "Hello," Addie said as she stepped inside. Come in," a faraway voice called. Then she heard the voice say, "Oh yes, come out, come out." Stillwater was in the backyard. He was in a tent. "Can I have your attention, please? Thank you." "This is a birthday present from my Uncle Rye," Stillwater said. "He always gives presents on his birthday to celebrate the day he was born. I like it so much that I'm not staying in my house right now." Stillwater invited Addie to sit with him. "You brought me some cake," said Stillwater. "That was very nice of you. Is it your birthday?" he asked. "No," said Addie. "It's "It's not mine either," said Stillwater, "but let me give you a gift for my uncle's birthday. I will tell you a story." Uncle Rye and the Moon. My Uncle Rye lived alone in a small house up on the hills. He didn't own many things. He lived a simple life. One evening, he discovered he had a visitor. A robber had broken into the house and was rummaging through my uncle's few belongings. The robber didn't notice Uncle Rye, and when my uncle said, "Hello," the robber was so startled he almost fell down. My uncle smiled at the robber and shook his hand. "Welcome, welcome. How nice of you to visit." The robber opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't think of anything to say. Because Rye never lets anyone leave empty-handed, he looked around the tiny hut for a gift for the robber, but there was nothing to give. The robber began to back toward the door. He wanted to leave. At last, Uncle Rye knew what to do. He took off his only robe, which was old and tattered. "Here," he said, "please take this." The robber thought my uncle was crazy. He took the robe, dashed out the door, and escaped into the night. My uncle sat and looked at the moon, its silvery light spilling over the mountains, making all things quietly beautiful. "Poor man," lamented my uncle. "All I had to give him was my tattered robe. If only I could have given him this wonderful moon." "Your uncle sounds nice," said Addie. "I don't think I could have given away my only robe." "I know how that is," said Stillwater. "There's always the moon." "That was a very good story," said Addie. "Thank you," said Stillwater. "And this is good cake." "Thanks," said Addie. "I made it myself." Okay, now I'm going to read the story Uncle Rye and the Moon again, but we're going to start from where it says Uncle Rye and the Moon. And I'm going to read it incorrectly with the incorrect intonation. I'm going to try to do this. It's very difficult because my voice is used to doing it the right way. So, Uncle Rye and the Moon. My Uncle Rye lived alone in a small house up in the hills. He didn't own many things. He lived a simple life. One evening, he discovered he had a visitor. A robber had broken into the house and was rummaging through my uncle's few belongings. The robber didn't notice Uncle Rye, and when my uncle said, "Hello," the robber was so startled he almost fell down. My uncle smiled at the robber and shook his hand. "Welcome, welcome. How nice of you to visit." The robber opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't think of anything to say. Because Rye never lets anyone leave empty-handed, he looked around the tiny hut for a gift for the robber, but there was nothing to give. The robber began to back towards the door. He wanted to leave. At last, Uncle Rye knew what to do. He took off his only robe, which was old and tattered. "Here," he said, "please take this." The robber thought my uncle was crazy. He took the robe, dashed out the door, and escaped into the night. My uncle sat and looked at the moon, its silvery light spilling over the mountains, making all things quietly beautiful. "Poor man," lamented my uncle. "All I had to give him was my tattered robe. If only I could have given him this wonderful moon. Okay, we'll stop there because that's the actual story in the story. You notice a difference?
Yes.
Is it very difficult for you to follow?
Yes.
It doesn't flow. The story doesn't flow.
At all, does it? So, language is like a music, right? And it has a rhythm. And if you are speaking in your native language, there's a rhythm that's very easy for you to relate to. And like for me, it's very difficult for me to read that in an incorrect intonation. And I keep slipping back into it. But that's something that we need to learn. So what we're going to do is we are going to practice reading this together, and we are going to read it with the correct intonation after I've read it one more time correctly. And then what I'm going to do is show you some tricks on how to actually use the correct intonation and figure out what the correct intonation is.